Hello, everyone. Welcome to Seattle Entrepreneurship Club weekly sharing event. I'm today's host, May. And today we are very happy to have Nobolita D, the founder of FIB and Returnshipsorg, here to give us a talk. Hi, Nobolita.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for coming to sharing your knowledge and sharing your experience. Okay, before we start the presentation, I will have a very short introduction for Seattle Entrepreneurship Club. So Seattle Entrepreneurship Club, SEC, is a nonprofit organization established in 2008, and SEC offers a variety of services to help entrepreneurs, venture investors, and a variety of professionals succeed in Seattle and North America. SEC also cooperates with organizations in different industries and fields to promote exchange of entrepreneurs, talents, and culture between China and America. So today's talk, we will have two parts. And first, we will have Nobolita to give us a presentation. And the audience are welcome to leave your questions in the chat or in the QA panel. And after the talk, we will have a QA session to answer these questions. I forgot to say, Nobolita is not only an entrepreneur, but also currently an engineer at Uber. So I believe today's talk gonna be not only very interested for people who is already in the startup team, but also very interesting for people who is still in the big tech companies and willing to start their startup ideas. So without further say, I will give the time to Nobolita. So time is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Today, I'm going to talk to you about, building an impactful startup during the pandemic. So the first part of the talk, I'll talk about the kind of efforts that I built in pandemic and the startups and the ventures that I built throughout and how I scaled them and what all work did I do. And then the second part of the talk, I will basically walk through my insights or in general, what did I learn while I was building and scaling these startups in pandemic. So let me share my screen quickly. Can you stop sharing your screen so I can share my screen? Awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. All right. Can you still see my screen?
Sure, yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, the first the work that I did was around helping COVID-19 initiatives, which is related to India. So basically, around beginning of this year, we saw like a huge surge of COVID-19 cases in India. As you can see, there were like more than 254,000 deaths in India around that time, just out of COVID-19. And then there were so many cases in general that there were like not enough places to even bury these people, and the bodies were being disposed into the rivers. So you can imagine the amount of extent of COVID-19, of how it impacted India. And as you can see, it surged around April, going from like less than 200K to all the way to 400K cases like per day, which was like a huge amount of cases. And then more than, as you can see, around October of last year, it was around 1.5K deaths per day, whereas it surged up to like more than 4,000 deaths per day around April of this year. As you can see, the same trend is also shown by this particular chart. So, and then even the vaccinations, you can see only 2.7% at that point were vaccinated at that point. So what the problem being that, like there were so many people that needed COVID-19 help and relief, and all the resources were scattered and not in one place. And that's why I created this initiative called covidhelpforindia.com. It's like a website that I created where it links all of the different resources for COVID-19 for people who are back in India to find those help and resources online. So as you can see, they could find doctors near them, ambulance near them, oxygen, blood donor, nurses, medicines, food resources, mental health resources. And I built it in a way in sort of a forum. So I basically arranged it per state of India. There are like more than 29 states in India. So for each state, I added the helpline numbers, I added state specific resources, and I kind of built it through a crowdsourced medium to make sure that people can get help for COVID-19, because at that point all these people were basically just posting on social media asking for blood donations or plasma donations, or like finding hospitals near them. And I think that at that point building that was like a great initiative because it helped so many different people, and my website got hits from more than 30 countries, so that was also pretty awesome. Then the next initiative that I built was around helping women return to the workforce after they have had a career gap. So in pandemic, we saw that more than 3 million US women had dropped out of the workforce, and one out of every four women, they were considering downshifting their careers. And it's probably because daycare centers were closed, kids schools were closed, so everybody was resorted to like staying at home. And at that point, as we have seen, often women take a back seat in their career so that they can help their family and the other people succeed, and that leads to them dropping out of their careers and never returning back, even because they do not have the resources to return back to the workforce after they have had a career gap. And the amount of stigma around it, and the fuzziness and what exactly somebody needs to do when they want to return to the workforce after they have had a career gap. Especially, I think that came more into play when I was helping somebody in my family actually return back to the workforce after she had had like more than 20 years of career gap over this pandemic. And she started asking me questions like, hey, what kind of resources are relevant, like what kind of skills of mine from back in the day are still relevant in the industry, or what kind of jobs can I do currently, what kind of degrees can I take, are there something that do I need to know certain things from before, or can I just onboard right now, or what kind of even technology do I need to know, because back in the day technology was not a huge thing 20 years ago, whereas now it's like one of the core thing. Like no matter what profession you choose, you have to know like the basic stuff of how to write an email, how to frame documents in Google Docs or Microsoft Office. And that was not really relevant back in the day. So there are like a lot of skills changes, so that often prevent somebody who is in their kitchen thinking of returning back to the workforce and what they need to do to like take the next step. So that's when I founded this non-profit initiative with my foundation called Abunita Day Foundation. And the initiative name that I named was Returnships.org. It's to like bridge the gap between caregivers, like stay-at-home caregivers who are thinking of returning back to the workforce and making them actually ready to sit and interview at the interview table. How this is different from all of the initiatives that exist currently is because we come much early on and not much later. Like most of the initiatives and most of the even returnship opportunities that does exist today, it's for somebody who is already ready to sit at the interview table, interview and get these opportunities. However, like the market segment that I was trying to focus on are people who are thinking of returning back to the workforce. Like that's somebody in your kitchen, maybe your mom or somebody in your family or in your extended family who took that gap to take care of their family, and basically thinking in their kitchen currently, like thinking that, hey, it would be nice if I could also have my job and my career back. And how do they do that? So I built like different things to circum that problem. First of all, I built a free course. As you can see on the right is like a flow chart of how the course is listed. It's listed in a much more psychological manner. The first step being that, everybody wants to feel motivated knowing that there are other people out there who has overcome these struggles, who have returned back to the workforce after taking a career gap, and what kind of struggles and what kind of challenges did they have to overcome, and what did they do, what worked for them, and how did they explain that career gap. Even there are so many different questions, and oftentimes just hearing other people who have successfully bridged the gap can really help. So the first module is like getting motivated, where I also built this returnships podcast, where I basically bring in people and share their stories of them returning back to the workforce. I also bring in a lot of domain experts like career coaches, mentors, even recruiters sharing. Like I spoke to a Google recruiter. If you look up our podcast, it's basically, it has all of those resources where I ask them, what they need to do basically when somebody is trying to look for a new job, or how do you approach jobs, how do you give your resume to a recruiter, all of those things. And then even spoke to a career coach on how a career coach can help further your career along. And then I also spoke to returnship directors on Amazon, Audible, and various other companies on how they structure their return to work or returnship programs, and what kind of people are they looking for, and how to apply or even get into these kind of jobs. So all of those are under the Get Motivated module. And the next step after you're feeling a little bit more motivated is kind of learning about yourself better, so that you can kind of find what exactly are the best career paths for you. So it includes like somebody who has been out of workforce and sacrificed their life to caregiving. Of course, there are a lot of times they feel like lost, or they do not know what exactly where their passions lie, or where are some of the things that they want to do. And I think this part kind of covers on how they can find themselves, or how can they provide mindfulness, and how to even create vision boards, what kind of career paths, what their personality entails. So I've also listed a bunch of personality tests that somebody can take, which can also help them guide on what kind of careers are relevant to them. And then also includes what kind of simple questions, like what kind of laptop or technological device do they need currently to even look for jobs and things like that. And then how do somebody set up a work from home desk, because this is at the end of the day a pandemic job, right, they're looking for. So what are some of the things they need to do. So all of those things kind of falls under knowing themselves better. Now after somebody knows themselves a little bit better, the next step is they will ask is what kind of courses, trainings, all of like what kind of free resources exist today that I can take. And this part, the necessary trainings module, includes that. It starts from the grassroots level, like learning English, computer science, like the basics, learning like social media, to like what kind of career paths exist today, what kind of roles exist within companies, what kind of courses that you can take completely for free that exist today. All of those resources are listed under that. And the next step after that is, after you kind of know about what kind of you have had done those trainings, you know yourself a little bit better, you are motivated. The next step I believe is you want to showcase what you already have, your talents, your skills, in form of an online presence. So that module kind of talks about how can you build your online presence, how to write your resume, how can you create a portfolio site, how can you incorporate storytelling into your narrative when you are even pitching into startups or even looking for jobs. That falls under building your resume and online profile. And the next step is like, even if somebody is still feeling stuck at that point, I think that's where I list like therapy resources, like coaches, mentors that can jump in and can help you advance in your career if you're feeling stuck at that point. And at the last step is like returnship opportunities to like help people to bridge the gap, to help people to return to the workforce. So these returnship opportunities are like internship opportunities that are created by companies to help people return to the workforce who have had at least 2 or more years of a career gap. So it's something that you can look currently, go on Google, search returnship, and you'll see so many different opportunities that exist. Or you can even go to navanisadayfoundation.com, and you should be able to see all this course is entirely free. You can take it, or you can even recommend somebody to take it. You can even listen to all the podcasts. Even if you're somebody who is not returning to the workforce, but you're already in workforce, this can also help you, reach your next level in your career. Then there is also, apart from the free course, there's also a cohort that I'm planning to launch next, which will help participants, like if there are specific areas that they need help with, it will basically help them through that, and help eventually with the goal of helping them to return to the workforce after they have had a career gap. Now, within 8-9 months of launching Returnshipsorg, as you can see, has reached 92 countries organically. Like, I didn't have to spend any dollars to have this organic reach. So really grateful for that. And also like represented Returnshipsorg and all of these platforms. So currently we are Forbes brand contributors, like Nobnita Day Foundation is, through which I have written and published around like 10 or 12 articles on Forbes and continue to write more. Apart from that, I have basically like represented Returnshipsorg and all of these platforms, including Power to Fly, UNICEF speaker series, University of Maryland, Princeton University, Buffalo Startup Week, the Global and Gender Equality Forum, UNESCO, all of these platforms. Now, if you want to get involved with our initiative, you can, of course, donate to our fundraiser. You can even come volunteer for us. So you can go to Nobnita Day Foundation/careers, and there are a list of volunteer opportunities that you can get involved with. You can also, follow our Facebook and Instagram on the links posted below. You can also find us on LinkedIn at returnships.org by Nobnita Day Foundation. Now, thinking about what are my key takeaways from building these initiatives, in the past. And I think there are some key takeaways that was like in every initiative that I built. And the first was, of course, like, I believe that it's important to solve like the harder problem, because I feel like if you're solving like an easier part, what ends up happening, there are so many competitors in that space who is already competing, making that space super saturated. So when you try to aim for solving a harder problem, even if you make things a little bit better, you organically gain a lot of traction. And that's what happened with Returnship.org or with FIB that I built back in the day. Like all of them, where I tried to I solved a harder problem, but I did it by breaking down the problem smaller enough that smaller parts of it was already solved by other people. What I needed to do is like put all of the pieces together and create a solution that people can use and leverage. And I think that of course is like my first advice for you, is always try to pick like a hard problem and try to like scope it enough and try to solve it, show like a basic MVP to people, and there will be so many people who would be interested in what you're doing. The next is channelizing your community. Like the way I reached an organic reach is I basically used my voice and my story to like kind of talk about why I built this initiative, how I did it, various parts of it. And I started by just posting it on Facebook everywhere, and that itself resonated with so many different people, like on the Facebook groups. And then people replied, they were more interested. Then I went and spoke on all of these different platforms. And I think by just channelizing the community and oftentimes crowdsourcing, like for example, when I built FIB, which was like a algorithm which could detect fake news on the internet, I open sourced it instead of keeping it, and we were like the first people to build it in 2016. So we got so much of traction. But like I said, since I open sourced it, like we got like developers interested. There were like more than 20,000 hits on our GitHub page on the first day that we open sourced it. And then like there were so many developers, so many universities who started like research papers keeping our work as a baseline, and that helped us reach so many different markets. So if you have an initiative like that, think about how you can channelize your community. Then the next is getting creative with like go to market strategies. Like since you are in pandemic and you're trying to scale a startup in pandemic, there are so many resources which has come up, like for example this social media aspect. Like I see so many businesses creating TikTok videos and jumping on recent trends and telling their story through recent funny TikTok trends. So they're just getting creative, and basically they are leveraging that to go to market and gain that traction. So I think about what are some of the creative ways you can go to market with. Then the next is like leading with purpose. What I mean by that is like whenever you build a social impact or any sort of like startup, try to tell people on why exactly you're passionate about this particular thing, what exactly you're trying to solve, or what exactly you're trying to build, and try to lead with that. And oftentimes what ends up happening is you will resonate with like a lot of people, like a major segment of that people, and lead with that purpose and see who your first customers are and refine your product more and more so it seems more relevant to that segment of customers. Then the next is using work from home as your advantage. Like now that things are like it's everybody's like a virtual call away. You can network much more easier. Like for example, for me, I could do so many talks as a speaker just because I didn't have to travel there. I could just network through LinkedIn, like reach out to people saying that, hey, I'm interested in like speaking at your platform or whatever, and it often worked. So I would recommend you to networking through LinkedIn, like reaching out to people is much more easier. And if you have a team that is working from home for you, make sure that you reach out to each and every teammate of yours, like build those personal connections and create this inclusive culture for your team. Even though it's work from home, like make sure that they feel like they are bonded with their team, and their feedback and what they have to tell you, that also matters significantly when they're pitching to your startup. Then the next advice is like think about how you can collaborate with different websites and platforms. Like for example, I collaborate, like one example I could give you is like I collaborated with a local NGO, and I went to their food drive, but I kind of compiled a list of work from home resources, and I gave it out as pamphlets to different people who came to that food drive. So by kind of collaborating with that different NGO, I was able to get my word out in that particular event. So yeah, get creative with how you could like cross market and collaborate with different platforms to further your product. And then the next part is, of course, like when you are busy building this like startup, make sure you also have a good work life balance and you're not getting burned out, because at the end of the day, to sustain whatever growth you are building, you need that amount of work life balance. So make sure you have some sort of life outside your work, even though it's pandemic and the boundaries are blurry, I understand, but yeah, like it's something to consider. Then if you're trying to find your idea, these are the 18 sustainable development goals that are basically given out by United Nations. If you're interested in building a social impact venture, you can look into it. Like these have like major themes, like for example, no poverty, zero hunger, quality education, gender equality. You can or like clean water. You can contribute to any of these particular themes and kind of build your startups around that. Especially if you're finding an idea, like pick any of these and try to brainstorm and come up with what is somebody's a problem that people face on a day-to-day basis, or you face on a day-to-day basis. And by solving just your problem, you'll be solving like millions of problems of millions of people. So I mean, that is a great way of getting started. Then the next is, like I said, like divide and conquer a hard problem. As you can see, like this is a project Fabe that I built back in the day, which got a lot of it was like on 1,000+ news publications worldwide. And the reason why it got so much traction is like I solved the harder problem and I broke it down smaller enough. Like I approached the problem in a much more organic way. I was like, I'm trying to solve fake news. Like how does humans go about detecting fake news? And I think the first thought process that I feel people have is, you read a suspicious link and you're like, is this true, is this fake? And if you whenever you have the suspicion, then you go on Google, you'll search that a heading or something that you read, or a line that you're trying to fact check, right? And then you'll see a bunch of news sites or something that's returned by Google. And if it is from a site that you trust, like for example TechCrunch, Forbes, or like a big tech publication posting about it, then you're like, okay, this is a credible source and they have posted this. Then you kind of match with, what did I read initially, what did I read now? Are they same, are they different? If they're same, then you look, what I read, that's true actually. And if it is not, you're like, okay, that's fake, what I read initially. So the algorithm worked in the same way, where it summarized what the text from that algorithm, like from the initial news. Then it searched on Google or Bing. Then it found these text results. Then it looked through credible sources from that. Then it did text similarity between both, and then it found if something is true or fake, and basically gave that score. So and the smaller parts of it we didn't build. Like we didn't build Google, we didn't do like text ranking on news search, or neither did we build text summarization, or neither did we build what do you say, like credible checking. But we put all of the parts together at the Hack Princeton hackathon, and we were able to build a fully finished MVP by the end of the hackathon. So yeah, like we divided and conquered the harder problem, and we were eventually able to like solve a much harder problem, and which gained a lot of traction. So yeah, like any problem I feel like fits, if it is hard, like scope it and it should be solvable enough. Then the next is, of course, whenever you're going for a startup, you have to think about the business plan, right? So if you have any idea, this is a good template to get started, where you can define what your problem is, like, what you're trying to solve for, what exactly is the solution, what are some of the metrics, like how does it differ from what is already out there, and like how many people are getting onboarded to your platform, how many people are downloading it, how many people are bouncing off from your platform, or are you seeing day over day, month over month growth, or is there a fall, or are there certain features that people are clicking or engaging more, spending time on. So these are different. If you're in software industry, these are some of the metrics you can consider. Always lead with how you're unique from everything else in the market, like what sets you apart. It could be a simple, your unique proposition could be even that something may exist in Asia, let's say, but doesn't exist in the US, and you're just bringing that innovation to US. That's also a unique value proposition, but always make sure you know what that is. Then, and how does you like you doing solving this problem set you apart. Because a lot of VCs and a lot of investors, they are very interested on how you as a team is going to help this product become successful. Because VCs and investors, they all understand that at the end of the day, startups constantly pivot. An idea might not be the same idea, like what an idea startup started with today may not be the same idea 10 years down the lane. They might have pivoted severely. But if the team is solid enough that they see some sort of potential in building out whatever you're building, they will invest in you. So make sure you invest in building that amazing team. Like if you have certain skills and you lack certain skills, make sure you hire those people into your team, and so that you can build a well-rounded team. Then, like I said, think about like different channels that you want to go to market with, and what are. And another thing is, like, what I recommend is, like, never, whenever anybody asks you who is the customer, like, never say, okay, everybody is my customer. No, no, you have to like kind of do market survey to understand who specifically is your customer. You have to give your product in hands of those customers, like do a soft launch and see how they react to like the product that you're building, and if they even like it or not. And then, of course, think about cost structures, if it's a freemium model or a premium model or a subscription model or a one-time pay model. Like, think about how you will basically have that cost structure, and then revenue streams, and how you will fund whatever you're building, and how it will sustain in like a 3-year mark at least. Now, I believe that always try to tell a story whenever you're kind of not only just pitching to VCs or going to market, but also in general giving a word out. Like, for example, this is like one of the Forbes article that I wrote, which was around coaching my family member on her return to work. And that's how the entire Returnshipsorg and Abhinandan Day Foundation, like the entire idea got started. And I led by kind of telling my story on how what are the thought process when I was helping this person in my family return to the workforce, what kind of struggles we overcame. And I kind of started from that, and I think that really resonated with like my audience, because they were able to kind of see themselves in my shoes, or in my family members' shoes, to see if that they are a potential person. So whenever you're pitching your idea, make sure it's not about your company, but it's about what you can do for the other people. Then when you think about go to market strategy, there are so many ways that you can go to market. Like, number one is content creation, which is huge right now. If you're not investing, you should already become a content creator. If no matter what business you are on, you can create like just blog posts about the work that you're doing. Like, maybe write a Medium article, write a LinkedIn Pulse article, like write something like of how you got started, what you're doing, what you're building, what kind of market this is, and just put the content out there. Or even just start with creating a small TikTok account and create a TikTok, and see if that get traction. Like, this is the age of content creation. If you're not creating content, you're missing out. The next is, you can even pitch your idea to influencers and ask them to share that on their platform. By influencers, I mean is like somebody who has at least some number of followers on social media. So you can tap into their following, right, by asking them to share your product or use their product or give reviews about your product on their social media. So that could be another way of go to market. Then you can also even just pitch your idea to different news publications. Like, you can always send a email to Business Insider or Washington Post or like Forbes or like anybody. Like they all have like pitch section where you can pitch them. And I know like very few people get posted, but you never know what idea gets picked. So might as well like, shoot your shot and see what happens. Then you can also open source it, like how I approached Project Fab. Like by open source, I mean it's like putting your code on GitHub and then just putting it out there for community to contribute to it and maintain it. Then you can also go into the track of like speaking and conferences, like for example how I'm basically speaking about what I have done. So I'm also kind of going to market by through this entire engagement, right? So you can get creative of how you can go to market. And then find like whenever you're going to doing that, like tell a story, tell how you're different from other people. Then also think about beta launches instead of directly launching to everybody. Start with like finding who your early adopters are. By early adopters, I mean is who are the people when you pitch to, who are the people who are most excited about your product. They are probably like the like who are willing to pay and invest and use your product. They are your early adopters. Put it in hands of those people, get their feedback, and then use that feedback as testimonials on your website or whatever you're building. I think that can really help you not only get more consumers but show credibility of your product if you are like a new business. And of course, like if there's an early adopter, you can even ask them for referrals, that I'll give you my product for free, but you have to refer at least 10 people into something. So there are all these referral strategies that nowadays company employs. So you can also kind of think about that. You can also think about creating a podcast. Like for example, I have this Returnships podcast through which I tell stories, but that also helps bring a lot of engagement to my sites. That's also something that you can do. If you're interested in checking out my website, go to this nabhanitadayfoundation.com website right now, and you should be able to see how I have basically built various things around it. Now the next is like finding the money. I think that's like whenever you're pitching or you are like taking your business plan somewhere, people will always ask you, okay, who is paying for this? Or like how are you planning to break even? Because at the end of the day, if you're creating a business, you want to hit profitability. You want to be that multi-million-dollar billionaire at some point, right? So that will only happen when you hit this profitability. So how will you do that? Like when you have a product, think about what that product pricing would look like, basically, and who will be paying, who are your customers who are interested in paying for whatever product that you're building. So when you're thinking about that, like first think about what kind of development costs will come. Like if you're building a software, like you will need to probably hire coders, program managers, and then UI UX designers. Like think about all of those costs that will be needed to develop that product, and logistics around registering your company or things like that, and then hiring people. So all of those costs, and then all of the other things that needed around running a company. And then think about what is a fair price to place your product in a way that you can eventually break even in, if not the first year, but at least second or third year. And then based on that, you can think about what is a fair price to place your product. Are you going to be placing it like a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription or a one time, like a lot of apps on the app store, just one time you pay and you get the product? Or is it something like you download for free, but a bunch of features you click on, they are actually you have to pay for it? That's like a freemium model. So think about what pricing looks right for your product. You can also think about different ways to get started by like crowdfunding. Like you can create a GoFundMe, basically asking people to like donate to whatever you're building. You can also ask, of course, friends, family to initially pitch certain amount of money so you can get started. You can also just put it on your own, of course, like bootstrapping it. Then the next part is like you can even have early customers, onboard early customers and get money from funding from them to at least get it like ball rolling. And then you can also go the VC, angel investors, another route. However, really think about like whoever you're picking as your VC or angel investors, they are somebody who are going to stick with your company when you scale. So make sure you're picking like the right person. Like even when you're like the $1 billion company, they will probably have certain amount of shares in your company, right? So really think about how much you want to give to other people versus how much you want to keep to maintain certain amount of autonomy for your company. And then how will you define your market share is you can kind of look at who are your competitors, at what price point, have like what kind of market are they dealing with, is it a $1 million industry, whatever industry they are, and that can give you like what kind of market or valuation you can eventually be if you build something that was comparable to those products, right? So that can help you kind of find a good market share or valuation for your company. Now, if you have just a project, these are some of the immediate next steps you should do. Like the first is, like I mentioned, like blog about it, create some sort of, it could be a video blog, write blog, do something like put your content out there. Then survey the customers, people who are planning, people who you think are your customers, put it in hands of them, ask them if that's something that they want to use, get their feedback, and then reiterate on that. And based on that, you can kind of get an idea of, is this just a one-time product, or this can be a startup or something that you can pursue. So that can help you differentiate. And it's completely okay that you started a product, but all the feedback has been negative. Then that's the point where you need to really evaluate, is this something going forward, or changing and doing something else. Then if it is a product and not a startup, then think about what your product life cycle would look like for how long are you planning to maintain this product. Is the first iteration the only iteration that you want to put in the market, versus do you want to keep developing it over time? Like define that. Then think about what are your P0 features, which are like your must have features that you have to build, and then your P1 are like really nice to have. So make sure you build your P0 features and put it into market, because if you are like kind of paralyzed, you're thinking too much about your product and you're not really busy perfecting it. If somebody else goes to market first, I believe like the first person who goes to market first always has a a better run rate than the person who comes next. So it's always better to go to market first. So just put your idea out there by building out the P0 features, get the feedback, and then you can also iterate and build more P1 features later. Then think about, if you want to open source, if there's a part of code that you want to open source, and if that is so, who is going to maintain that code? Like think about those things as well. Then next is your team. Like oftentimes a lot of startups will ask you, a lot of VCs will ask you to find co-founders or the team. Like it could be that you started the project with somebody, but as you're iterating through it, you realize that those people are not really somebody you want to continue doing work with, right? So it's good. It's always good to reflect and see who are your long-term um, business partners and choose them wisely. And then basically create those the entire team, like divide the roles. Like a startup, if you're a tech person, of course you cannot just have developers. You need to have business, you need to have sales, you need to have legal team, you need to have all of these different roles in your company as a startup to like function as a startup. So make sure you hire them. And then what kind of time, if you're somebody who actually is working in a big tech company, or a tech company, but is actually thinking of starting a side gig on the side, think about what kind of type commitment are you willing to give on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis, and when is a good time to give that. Like kind of map those things out so that you don't overcome it, and then later on you don't get frustrated when you don't really move ahead with your project. So yeah, I think these were all the stuff that I wanted to share today. Additionally, if you already have a project or a product that you want to go to market with, you can go to nabunitadayfoundation.com right now. You can sign up as a member, and then you can create a blog post there basically. And then I will be more than happy to share your project on all of your social media. And like I mentioned, that our product, like our startup, is being used by caregivers across 92 countries. So more than happy to amplify the work that you're doing. Apart from that, if you want to connect with me, these are some of the links that you can connect me. nabunitaday.com is my personal webpage, so you can kind of get an idea of the stuff that I've built previously. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. So yeah, that's all for me. Happy to take any questions now.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. I think this talk is a very, very helpful and informative one, and I think there's so many good suggestions, and people really can directly take it and to start to start his journey to the new project, a new maybe startup idea. And for me, I think the most impressive one for me is that the idea that you have is to break the hard problem into pieces and solve the small problems. And because my job is a applied scientist for natural language processing. So the example you have that build a fake news detection app, I know it is actually very hard to do that, but it is very impressive that you make that to be a real project and make that work. So and for me, and I think that's very important. Very impressive.
Absolutely.
And yeah, okay. I think yeah, audience, welcome to put your question in the QA session, and we have already collected a lot of different questions from our community. So for the first questions we have here is that, do you have plan to raise money, or what's the roadmap for the next year you have for your foundation and your projects?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I already have a GoFundMe through which I have raised some money, and I've also had like people donate to me through mail. So yeah, I plan to, like, if any of you is interested in donating to our initiative, feel free to go to the link that I listed right now, nobinitadayfoundation.com, and you can click on donate me and you can donate that currently. You're also more than welcome to come volunteer at our foundation. So you can find that on same, like, go to nobinitadayfoundation.com. You should be able to click on careers, and there are a bunch of different posts. You could be a social media ambassador, or you could be a resume reviewer, or it could be a coach, mentor, or anything you want to be. So yeah, like, feel free to just reach out to me regarding that.
Okay, yeah, that's good, and people are interested, welcome to do that. And for the next questions, and I think you have already gave so many very good suggestions. I think you probably have learned quite a lot from your past experience. So what's the most challenging part or the most impressive lesson you got from the past?
I think I have always, like I mentioned, right, I've always tried to solve like a harder problem, or like a moonshot problem is like something that people have not solved before, because I have always noticed that by solving the harder problem, I've gotten more traction than competing with saturated things in the space. And I think the downside of that is oftentimes, because you're the first person to kind of build those things, it's always very fuzzy on what will really stick with people or how to even get started. So I think in general, I've faced challenges when I have started to think about, like, for example, when I was initially building nobinitadayfoundation.com, like the Returnshipsorg initiative, like I was helping somebody in my family return to the workforce, and like her challenges were so unique. So I was very conflicted if it was very unique enough that it might not resonate with a lot of different people, right? Because I was helping her in only a very certain way, and based on whatever she was telling me, I was just giving her resources. Like, for example, one day she'll be like, hey, I really want to learn about what kind of technologies are out there, and then I sent her a bunch of list of things that I knew of. Or then the next day she'll ask me, what kind of laptop I should buy, and then I'll send her a list of links and resources around that. And then eventually, like, I was like, what, maybe I should document this and put it in a website, so that it's like a one-stop shop for somebody. It could be somebody elderly who is trying to just gauge like the world and become more aware of what are things they could do right now. It could be somebody who is even returning to the workforce. So I just put all the resources out there, and I was very nervous that like maybe people might not find it like really relevant. It's just a very unique experience of my family member. So yeah, there was a lot of fuzziness on how do I, because I didn't find any resources which kind of laid the path like bit by bit on how exactly somebody can return to the workforce. So when I was creating that course on my own without like basically having any guidance, it was very fuzzy in general on how the steps should be laid next by next. But I think I just trusted my gut and intuition on how exactly I would do things, in the sense that if I had that career break, what would I do? Or I started thinking about like I said, breaking down the problem like smaller enough and think it from a human perspective, that if I was in this situation, what are some of the things I would do next, and kind of creating content around that and mapping the path. So yeah, I think over like all of those and there are so many other challenges also in general. Like I'm the first, Asian American from my family to be in the US. So of course, there was no guidance in general on how to like go for startups or even get job. Like right now, I'm working at Uber. Previously, I was actually at Microsoft for like 3 years almost. I had no guidance because there's nobody in my family who is in tech. Like I'm the only person in my family who is in tech. So I had no guidance in general on how to go about anything for that matter. Like, so in general, I think a lot of struggles around that also in like mapping out my path or finding what really resonated with me. And I think that really helps by like I always try to network with as many people as I can. And if there is something that I need help, like I need to bounce my idea with, I'll try to reach out to a domain level expert and I'll try to bounce my ideas with them just to get their feedback. Like for example, when I was thinking about in general startups and hackathons, I went to different hackathons, like across the country. And then I would just pitch my ideas and I'll get people in my team. And those people who came to those hackathons were people who are equally passionate about, building world ideas and things like that. So I made sure that I was another thing like that reminds me is I made sure that I'm picking the right team. So whenever I would pitch my idea and a lot of people would be interested in joining my team, I would have a chat with them to see if they are really interested or they're just here to just kill time. You know what I mean? Because that's also becomes very necessary that you don't pick people in your team who are just lacking and you will have to do all the work on your own. So yeah, making sure you incorporate people in your team who are really also passionate about moving the idea forward and are willing to. And then a lot of people, like for example, when I built Project Fabe, like two of my team members had never ever written a Chrome extension ever out of the four people, and they were the people who built the Chrome extension, to be honest. So I took a bit, like when they said that, hey, I want to build the Chrome extension part, like I built the algorithm part, two of my other teammates built the Chrome extension part, and my third teammate like connected my algorithm to the Chrome extension. So the two people who came to join my team, they were like sophomores. They're like, we have never built they have not done anything, but we are willing to learn and we are willing to take up a challenge. And I took a risk on them because I, like, by talking to them and by understanding the kind of skills that they had, I could see that they had a growth mindset and they were willing to learn and they're willing to complete the project. So I took a chance. I was like, okay, fine, you both will be in my team and you both will be in charge for something that you've never done. But I had that hope that they will be able to, and they were able to deliver more than necessary. Like they tested all the edge cases, they learned how to build a Chrome extension in like 2-3 hours, and then they were able to build that. So I think in general, another thing is like, you have to be very intuitive on what kind of team you're picking. That's also like a huge part. And whenever you feel like you don't have you are stuck, make sure you reach out to mentors, advice, network with as many people as you can, talk up to your about your idea to as many people as you can, and get the feedback to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion and a lot of learning. So yeah, definitely to find the hard problem, find the real problem that people are trying to deal with, and be brave to do the uncertainty and find the good people, keep learning. I think yes, this is a true entrepreneur should do. Yeah, thanks. Okay, and also audience, if you have questions, you can type in the chat and or just raise your hand and I will let you talk. So next question also from our community. So how you grow your startup team? Do you plan to focus full-time on your startup?
I think for now, like I am not focusing full-time because I also like my job a lot at Uber, like the work that I'm like. So I work in the security team at Uber, and I really like the work that I'm doing there as well. So I plan to like do both on the side, because I'm also able to like kind of manage that both. And especially I feel like with pandemic, where it's like the work from home culture, where you don't have to commute for 2 hours each way. You save so much time. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to like time management. If you're able to manage your time efficiently, you're easily able to have like side gigs on the end. And I know like there's a lot of content around in general that most famous like most billionaires or millionaires have like 7 streams. So, I know it's like crazy, but like I've heard that uh, it's good to have like multiple streams of income and not just feel like your 9 to 5 is like the only place that you can gain income from. Especially like I feel like there can be so many different ways that that are completely legal that you can get income from, like for example investing in real estate, or having a side gig, or like volunteering for causes, and being an advocate for various things. So I think that's where I am right now. But maybe like I think in the future, as I feel like I grow more in my career, I do see myself at some point doing this full time. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, definitely to have a multiple income, that is very important. And there are a lot of challenges, and the money is definitely the one of the biggest one in your startup journey. So yes, so okay. And also next questions, you have talked about the work-life balance is very important for keeping your journey. And the question is that how you balance your startup and your full-time engineering role for the time management. Yeah, I think this is also one of the questions I definitely want to know, because you have done quite a lot of things. I definitely be curious about this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think like my 9 to 5 is all over time. Like it doesn't matter what happens. I try to like, have that time dedicated to my work, no matter what happens. But I think before and after is, of course, there are a lot of times that I have said no to a lot of hangouts with my friends. So I can like at work on returnships and Abhinita Day Foundation. And there are a lot of days in general that you will feel like you have to push yourself and there will not be any motivation to work on your project. Like I think every entrepreneur has a lot of those days. But I think having like a fixed schedule, like for example for me, generally my evenings I try to work on returnships. Like I would like work from 6 to 12 sometimes, depending on if there's like a blog post that I'm writing, I'll often write and then edit. Or even whenever I'm editing my podcast, I've edited 5 hours in a row sometimes. So yeah, I mean, like that's why I also mentioned that it's important to not get burned out. So make sure that you also schedule time with your friends and loved ones in the week. Like I try to keep that my weekends relatively freer, so that I can hang out with my friends, or I can have the downtime to like recover from the entire managing 2 different things at the same time. But yeah, like I think in general, just being consistent, like you don't have to work for 5 hours. It's just I felt very passionate in the beginning, and it needed a lot of pushing upward in the beginning. And I think now I don't work 5 hours anymore. I just do like 2-3 hours every day. And not even every day, like whenever it is needed, I do that. Sometimes I just don't need to do anything. I just focus more on content creation and sharing my content on multiple things. But yeah, in general, like I think the beginning part of it is where you will need the maximum amount of time. And there will be days that you will be working like 14-hour days, like if you are doing like both your full time and your side gigs. But you have to like push through those days, because I'm telling you, there were so many days I like, even though I was like, I had all these different speaking gigs and I had traction and everything, I personally also felt like giving up. There are so many days you'll feel like giving up. You feel like nobody cares about your product, or you feel like it doesn't matter. But you have to like narrow, like reduce that self-talk and just focus on your work and focus on pushing, and make sure you keep your eyes open on what other people are trying to also do in that space, to see where you can expand more and more. And I myself have taken inspiration from so many different people in my space on what they're doing and what is working for them, what is not working. So yeah, in general, I think that's what my schedule looks like currently. Is like my evenings I always try to do like the returnship stuff, and then the mornings and entire time is focused on. And then also you can also take breaks in between the day, to like, some people find it useful to just go on like a walk, to just break from constantly working, and also incorporate like like going to the gym or just working out, getting yoga stretches between the day to like, or even going on TikTok for 30 minutes and be like, just relaxing for a little bit. But yeah, like make sure, like, I don't think one schedule works for all kind of thing. Like maybe I'm somebody who likes to do things at one stretch and then take a lot of break and then do things on the stretch. But it's something like taking smaller breaks and getting stuff done that can also work for you. So yeah, make sure like what works for you and then follow that religious, like do 5 different things in the next week, like each every day, pick different patterns. Like one day you do a continuous, the next day you break pattern, like try 7 different patterns, see what worked for you in that 7 days, and then that follow that every day. Basically, I think that's the way to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. Yes, definitely find the way that is best suited for you, and also always save time for your friends and for the loved ones. Okay, thank you very much. I think I personally learned a lot, and I would say this is one of my favorite talk I have in SEC, but if this is not the best one. But yeah, well, again, thank you. And I hope that audience also learned a lot. And well, yeah. Okay, so yeah, and I hope also your project in the future will be even better, and also you can next time you can still share more of your experience here in SEC.
Absolutely. Like I have linked the website in the chat, so feel free to like click on it, go through it. If you have any suggestions about the website, about the initiative in general, just feel free to send me a message.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and also thank audience. Okay, this concludes our talk today. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.